And we are on. Hello and welcome to Sports Unhinged. My name is Mohamed, and whether you're listening to us on your favorite podcast app or if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, we're glad that you can join us. A review of the biggest fight in MMA history, Conor McGregor versus Khabib Nurmagomedov. Fahad, welcome back on the show.
Hey man, it feels like it was yesterday.
It was very close to yesterday. Last week, we did a preview of the show. Mm-hmm. And the way that I want to go about it right now, we've got a lot to unpack. I mean, the events of this event have been quite interesting, quite intense. And
there is a lot to unpack.
So much. So let's just go back and pick up from where we left off in the last episode, which was the second press conference where Khabib turned up on time, Dana turned up on time, everybody else turned up on time. But Conor, I don't know if it was really traffic or if it was a tactical kind of move to mess with Khabib's head.
100%.
He came quite late and, again, did what he always did.
Carnage ensued. Dude, I think, coming back to what you were saying, I think it was, for me, it was the beginning of the end for Conor McGregor, that press conference. I think Khabib played it, and Conor, Dana himself said it was the perfect counterpunch, right? I think that was brilliantly done by Khabib. I don't know if it was intentional by him,
right?
But it was so well done with so much passion and conviction.
You mean the leaving early, or
yes, the whole thing that Conor he didn't know what to do with himself. He didn't know what to do. He didn't expect it. I think it was brilliant. I think it was brilliant. What were your thoughts?
And people really had a go at me for this and for saying that in the last episode. You won't believe the number of people that sent me messages or called me up that said, how could you say that Conor is scared? You know, this is like blasphemous. And you said last week, this is a guy with supreme confidence. And
I still wouldn't say that it was fear. I don't think it was fear.
It was concern. It was, on the spectrum of concern to scared for your life. I mean, it was bordering on fear, I feel. He
was like, alarm bells were ringing. Let's put it that way for Conor McGregor. He was like, wow, all right, I'm not sure what to do here. And like, the reason I say it was the beginning of the end for Conor McGregor is just because his antics from there on out, and I know we're going to cover that now in sequence, from there to the official weigh-ins, to the ceremonial weigh-ins, to the fight, to what happened after.
Right.
It was just a downward spiral, and it ended it was a fitting end to such an episode. I feel, not whether that's a positive thing or a negative thing. I know it was a negative thing. It should never have ended that way, but the build up to where that went, it ended the way that I feel this debacle was destined to end, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely. And the way, and that kind of reinforced what I said last time during that press conference. He was calm. Khabib was calm. And we saw that as a pattern throughout. And we'll talk about what happened at the end. But it also showed how much self-restraint that Khabib had in the build-up. Because the events at the end showed that it wasn't just him taking the trash talk and being calm about it. It was really personal.
Pent up.
It was pent up anger, frustration.
100%, man.
And then the next day, obviously, there was the official weigh-ins.
Yeah.
And the clock started, and Khabib was one of the first people there.
First one there. That was just a statement and a half. Yeah. And that was the next trigger in Conor's mind to think, oh my God, like this is not how I expected this to go. And like, man, that was when he showed up first. I was sort of in and out watching it live, whatever. He showed up, the distinction, the conviction that he had, rocking up to that stage, came in at 155 championship weight.
He means business.
Rocked straight out. Yeah. End of story.
Right.
And Khabib has been, like, we know he's had issues with his weight, tiramisu, like
this was the thing that I was scared of the most, and I said that.
You said that.
I was more scared of Khabib not making the fight and then having to have Tony Ferguson or Anthony Pettis step up.
100%.
So when I saw that he weighed in first, went out, like you said, what a statement. Yeah. He showed that he was professional. He's turning up for war. Conor obviously turned up eventually as well. But one thing I noticed when Conor was at the weigh-ins, he looked depleted. He reminded me of the time that he weighed in for 145, where he looked completely like a
skeleton.
Yeah, he looked like a skeleton.
Yeah.
There was an element of that.
Yeah.
And again, there was that look of concern. There was that look of... a little bit, I have to say, it was
You
a little
think it
bit
was
of
fear?
fear. It was a little bit of fear because you watch the highlight reel of Khabib. It's nothing
It's
but
scary.
him sitting on top of people. And
It
the
is.
ground and pound, I feel, is probably the thing that scares MMA fighters the
It's
most.
fear-inducing, yeah.
If you get punched standing up, if you get a flash knockout, if you get any of, I mean, yeah, it happens. You get caught, you're done. But when somebody's sitting on top of you, the referee's not going to stop that until you stop defending or you're completely knocked out.
Yeah.
And it's not just, you know, the fist hitting your head. It's the fist hitting your head, hitting the ground. You know, like
100%.
it's.
And Khabib knows how to do enough just so that the ref doesn't step in and stop it. I was so happy that Herb Dean didn't stop anything because he was always active. Conor was defending.
Yeah.
But yeah, 100%. I think Khabib's mastered that art of like just being active just enough to put a beating on an opponent. I think just coming back to what you were saying in regards to like the fear that you feel Conor had, I think it was, and when I say that, it was the beginning of the end for Conor again was just, and you touched on this before in the last episode as well, was just about Khabib's demeanor.
Yeah.
Now, just as a general statement, and as we said, there's a lot to unpack here, but as a general statement, I feel what he showed, what Khabib showed, and I also doubted, but then after this whole thing that has happened since we last spoke, was unwavering, unshakable calmness. And that comes from me, like just through a slightly more deeper analysis from just faith.
Yeah.
Now, I don't want to go into a sermon here. I don't want to go too religious, but this is a massive element that we can't ignore it.
We can't ignore it. We have to.
But like what I mean is this man has devoted himself to God. And we see a lot of fighters, especially from the Brazilian backgrounds. They're very Christian. They're very sort of religious. Everything is down to God.
Max Holloway, blessed. You know,
Yeah,
like
from
the
Hawaii,
whole-
you know him. You've got even Edson Barboza. You've got Rory McDonald. They're all very devout. But, well, devout is a word I want to use for Khabib. He has submit himself to his religion, to his faith, to his God. He literally, when I look at somebody who's pure, when I look at somebody who considers themselves a vessel of a higher power, I see Khabib down to the point what we spoke about at weigh-ins, where he's depleted, has zero water in his body, not zero, but you know what I mean. He still takes his water. He sits down.
And
with his right hand, and he takes a sip of water.
Yeah.
When you're in your toughest moments, a man like that cannot be beaten. Why?
Yeah.
Because he fears no one but God. And I don't want this to turn into a sermon.
No, but that is a very important point because a lot of people didn't pick up on that. A lot of people even asked me like,
faith is a huge factor of this win for Khabib and his success as 26-0.
absolutely,
27-0.
27-0. I actually had somebody ask me, they're like, one sign that Khabib is completely depleted and he's going to lose, he couldn't even drink while standing up. He had to sit down. I told him, no, this is different. This is something
his
related
faith.
to his faith. So it was
a man that does everything, exists for a higher power, exists for something that he feels is his like his purpose.
Yeah.
No man, no Conor McGregor, no amount of talk can waver his faith and rock him. And that was why I say the beginning of the end, because he left the press conference, the weigh-ins he was first. And he just and Conor progressively just saw that, hey, I am not in this man's head, and I am in deep trouble.
And this is the first time. I mean, we were saying that, you know, Khabib is a brand new experience for him, being up against somebody like Conor, with the crowd, with the support, with the trash talk, with how he gets into your head. We kind of didn't look at it on the other side. Conor has never been up against anyone where he didn't at least inflict some kind of mental damage before the fight, significantly to the point where it would carry over to the fight and make it easier for him.
Yeah.
Conor fights maybe 10 or 15 or 20% of his fight outside the octagon.
100%. I'd say
and
more.
then gets in. Or even more sometimes. I mean, with Jose Aldo, it was 75%.
Yeah.
You
And
know?
with Nate Diaz, like it was he couldn't really get into Nate's head either, and he lost the first fight. He had to go back, figure out an actual game plan to fight him. He couldn't do it. Like guys that he can't get into the head of, he faces trouble. And I think like the biggest sign where he was broken was it was after the second round where he got dropped.
Yeah.
In the third round, he came out, and I don't know if you saw, he put his hand out to try and get like some form of, you know, tap, hey,
like
let's
respect.
fight.
And then we moved on to the ceremonial weigh-ins.
Yeah.
And in the ceremonial weigh-ins, that's where, again, things got really interesting. And we saw some kind of desperation from Conor McGregor to get some kind of reaction from Khabib. Because, again, they were squaring off. Conor tried to get close to him, pushed his hand down, tried to kick him. And Khabib is just standing there immediately, you know,
just stoic.
Pointed to himself. It's not about me. It's about God, you know.
Unbelievable.
And I think that was the moment when Conor knew, you're not getting to this guy. You're going to have to do it all in the fight.
Have you ever seen Conor McGregor at a ceremonial weigh-in or a fight where he hasn't puffed his chest out?
Yeah.
I've never seen him not do that. This fight, he looked emotionally drained after going back, and I have to admit, I was very wrong in the last podcast in my analysis of what I thought this fight was going to be. Don't get me wrong, I still think Conor McGregor is an elite fighter, an elite striker, a brilliant fighter, but lost this fight on various different levels. But he was like a shell. I mean, Khabib was towering over a guy that has a larger reach than him.
Yeah.
Conor's a bigger guy than Khabib when it comes to height and range. Khabib was so strong in his appearance, in his like the way that he was presenting himself, and Khabib just looked visibly depleted, small, fragile almost, and he proved to be fragile mentally and physically.
And he came out in the interview with Joe Rogan. You know, again, Conor went racist.
Very.
Conor went. If you look at the build up to this, what Conor has done, I mean, he has gone after religion. He's gone after, and I've gone back and I watched the press conferences, and there were parts that I even missed in the press conference. The first one where Conor was talking about Khabib's dad, and he's like, you know, you lick, you know what, in a mosque, and like he said some really, really nasty things there. It was a bit too much.
A bit. It was, and you know,
at the time it was a bit too much because Khabib didn't understand it.
Yeah.
I didn't even pick up on it, and I think I can understand the Irish
100%.
accent very well. But you realize building up all, leading to the end of that fight and what happened. This was some serious stuff.
100%. And Khabib went like it's not like he didn't watch these things.
Yeah.
He might have not understood it at the point.
Someone would have explained it.
He has his management team, his friends, Daniel Cormier, Luke Rockhold, probably telling him, hey, this is what happened, this is what he said. So he finds out. So all of this is being pent up. All of this is being pent up. And you know, Conor McGregor is his highs are extremely high, but his lows are very low.
Yeah.
And I think that's only because he piles on pressure on himself, right?
Right.
All of these antics, all of these different like ridiculous things that he says, these inflammatory statements, this persona that he's created is a hype machine for himself. So he piles his pressure up so high, and usually he performs, but when he doesn't perform, he not only does he look terrible in regards to getting smashed by Khabib, but also because of the stuff that he says. So his stock is at an all-time low. Now, I don't know what your thoughts are on whether his stock is at an all-time low, but I feel like they've never been lower. Let's put it that way.
I agree because let's face it. When he lost to Nate Diaz, that fight was taken on very short notice. He was supposed to fight Rafael Dos Anjos at 155. Diaz said he'll only be available at 165.
100%.
Conor got very cocky and he said, let's do it at 170. It was short notice. It wasn't a full camp. And he lost. And
but
then
he had some scapegoat, right?
There was an excuse, you know, like he was brave enough to take this fight. And, you know, and then what he did is he built it up again, put all that pressure on himself and said, I don't want the rematch at 155. I don't want it at 165. Exact same way.
170, same
170,
challenge.
Let's do it. Yeah. And when I saw that, I'm like, I have to go to Vegas to watch this.
100%, and you did.
And I did. And it was amazing. It was incredible.
A great athletic feat of strategy and skill.
Yeah.
You know? And I think he didn't, like, Nate and Conor never hated each other.
Yeah.
It's all a show, and they still don't hate each other. This was real. And that's where Conor, like, I feel that's where he fell short, because he didn't realize that you're dealing with a man who's a different beast.
It's a different culture.
It's a different culture. It's a different background, you know?
Because, you know, again, in MMA, it's very rare that you get undefeated fighters. And it's okay. It's not like boxing where you have to, you know, keep padding your stats and all of that kind of stuff. So, or pad your record. So when he came back and beat Nate Diaz the second time, it was great. Then he went to the Floyd Mayweather thing. And with Floyd, he went to the race thing quite a bit in the promotion. But Floyd is the kind that Floyd made the blueprint for this. He 100%. Is the creator of this kind of trash talk to that level.
Yeah.
Even if we go back to Muhammad Ali was cute with his trash talk. It had a bit of rhyming to it. Floyd is the first person that came up with like, let me really, really get under my opponent's skin by getting a bit personal.
Yeah.
But the thing is, when you do that, you better back it up every time. The only reason Floyd is a multi-billionaire is because people tuned in every time to see him lose. Yes, he had a lot of fans that wanted to see him win. So Conor was following that. Now, when we come to Khabib, it's a completely different culture. You can't make fun of his race. You can't make fun of his dad who couldn't get a visa to go to the US.
Do you think he thinks that's funny? Do you think Conor, like Khabib is genuinely hurt and distraught by that? And you can't make fun of that. And Conor doesn't realize the culture. And it comes back, like you said, a very important point. Culture in the fact that in his like it's collectivism and individualism.
Yeah.
The Western societies are very individualistic. They don't really understand this notion. And when it came out in the fact that, you know, Khabib lives with his parents still, he lives with his wife and his kids in his parents' house.
Yeah.
That to people is like you know, an alien concept.
You leave when you're 18, right?
Of course.
You know, so.
Conor was making fun of that fact. People were making fun of it. People were shocked. You talk about, you see all of the different radio shows, etc., etc.
Yeah.
They just don't understand it. But this collectivist society in which Khabib lives in, and a lot of these societies live in, this stuff is not a joke. You don't make fun of religion, politics, family. Like this is the core of his existence. And Conor just didn't get that. He's benchmarking Khabib to all of his other fighters. This man is a different beast, and he's shown that. That's why he's undefeated.
Now we then got to the main fight.
Yeah.
And during the walk-ins, I went back and I said it again. We watched the fight together, and I said it again. You know, Conor looks a bit off. You felt that he was probably conserving energy because he burns a lot of, you know, the adrenaline.
I still think that's true. Because by that time, by the weigh-ins, by the walkout, he knew that, hey, you know what? This is real. I'm not in this man's head.
Yeah.
I cannot burn my adrenaline, my energy with my crazy ring walk, with my ridiculous like puffing out of my chest. Even his Billy strut was somewhat subdued.
His body was doing it, but his face, you couldn't hide, or like you could see it on his face.
I remember what I said to you. I said, look, you're mistaking that look of fear with savagery. I said that what you're seeing is not fear. What you're seeing is savagery. I was wrong. You were right. And I think you were also right with your prediction of the fight as well, but we'll get to that.
Yeah, we'll get to that. I don't want to gloat too much here, you know. We want to have you back again, you know. But
that's the beautiful thing about MMA though, right? Like,
right.
And I said it in the last one as well, is that I could be grossly wrong, and you could also be incredibly wrong. You just never know with these types of things until they played out.
Hey, this thing was a coin flip. Anybody that says they knew what was going to happen doesn't know what they're talking about.
The camps were 50-50. I think everyone I spoke to, it was 50-50, 50 with Conor, 50 with Khabib.
Yeah. It was just impossible to figure out. And that's what made this fight so amazing, you know?
Beautiful. So yeah, back to the walkouts.
The walkouts. And then Khabib came in. And that same calmness was there. The way he took off, like, I mean, maybe we're overanalyzing here, but the way he took off his hat, the way he took off the way he turned around and just, you know, hugged his corner, the way he walked in, he wouldn't really look at Conor. When Conor was doing, you know, and during the announcement, and Conor does his, you know, famous, you know, puffing of the chest or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Khabib was stretching, warming up. He didn't care.
Not phased.
He didn't fall for any of it. These are the things, you know, under the lights. And we talked about that last time. Khabib has never been in this kind of situations.
Yeah.
Under the lights with the Irish fans, everybody booing him.
You're giving me chills, Mohamed.
I just watched the fight for the third time right before we came here to record.
Yeah.
And I got the chills, like adrenaline, man. It's just adrenaline. It's unbelievable.
It was like the way that Khabib handled this was like a champion. And I think, again, I don't want to sort of keep harping on this, but it was, you could really, and this is where this analysis came from when I went back to watch it. Every movement he made, it was almost as though he was a vessel for something else.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, it was almost like, you know, it was so spiritual in the way that he was conducting himself.
Yeah.
you know, and it was like, you know what, like none of this means anything. You know,
it wasn't a UFC fight. It wasn't the crowd. It wasn't the belt.
Nothing.
It wasn't the championship.
I'm here, and I'm here because of God.
Yeah.
And that faith, whether you're religious or not, like that faith is something that if you have faith in anything, if you do something selflessly for another being, person, you can achieve things that are beyond measure. You know, whether you're religious or whether it's with family, whether it's with friends or your loved ones. Like when you do things selflessly for another person and you put that energy into that, I think things go in a really interesting way. And for him, he's harnessed this so well.
Couldn't agree more. Then the fight started. And if we thought the surprises or the shocks were over, we were in for a treat. So the first round was quite interesting because Conor came out, tried to start finding his range, but
defended well.
Defended well. Didn't get the chance because in round one, Khabib got that lock or like that takedown very quickly.
Very quickly.
And typical fighters, you typically need to get at least a leg to take somebody down. With Khabib, he grabbed his ankle and wouldn't let go. And it takes me back to that video of him as a 9-year-old wrestling with a bear.
Yeah.
Because you could see a lot of parallels between what was going on in that fight. And this guy has been doing it for a long time. And
people before him, his previous generations were doing it. Like it's this skill level is nothing you can prepare for. And I think that also came to light. No Dylan Dennis, no jiu-jitsu guys, no wrestlers can emulate Khabib Nurmagomedov. I don't know anyone who can, and that's why he's such a difficult puzzle. That sort of that technique of just grinding things out and being a chain wrestler with it. Like it's like, all right, you've defended one, all right, here's another one. Yeah. You defended it again?
Yeah,
cool,
let's go.
Cute. Let's go again. You know, 1 round, 2 rounds, 3 rounds, 4 rounds. He'll do it for 5 straight rounds. Yeah. It's crazy. No one can emulate that, and that's why I don't see anyone who can challenge him. I don't know. I told you. I said to you that I feel Kevin Lee can. I still think that he has a good chance. But this is the reincarnation of George St. Pierre, man. It's crazy.
I mean,
even though he's still active fighter, George St.
He
Pierre
is
not really reincarnated.
Right.
But it's almost
the old GSP, right?
Yeah, like this invincible guy that can take people down at will. Absolutely no problems, vicious ground and pound, and just swagger doing it. And you never feel as though, there's any doubt in the outcome. I did with Conor. I thought there would be a doubt in this outcome, but boy, was I wrong.
Yeah, and one of the most significant parts is because he got that takedown quite early in round 1. Let's not forget, Conor has never had a finish in the UFC after round 2.
Yeah.
It's always been after round 2. And his energy is always on getting that early knockout. Khabib took him down, put a lot of weight on him. It happened to be right next to the Proper 12 logo. And that didn't look good for Conor. Yeah. And that ground and pound, although there wasn't a lot of connecting with Conor's face in that round 1, but it took a lot of air out of Conor's,
it's cumulative.
And it builds up.
Yeah.
And that was one of the key questions that everybody was asked. Like, one of the prop bets is whether they were going to touch gloves or not before the beginning of the fight.
No chance.
The other one, the one that was 100% certain, what the answer for that was. The one that nobody could answer is whether whether Khabib can close the distance and get the takedown. And he was coming in from the middle of the octagon. He was jumping halfway across. Shooting from far away just to grab the ankle. Round 2 is where I think we had one of the most surprising, shocking moments in MMA history.
You remember my reaction to that, man?
And I turned around and looked at you when Khabib connected with the overhand right and dropped Conor McGregor. And I can tell people watching, I have never seen the look of genuine shock on anyone before. I turned around and this guy had his hands over his head. His mouth dropped all the way to the ground. Couldn't believe it.
True story.
Couldn't believe that Khabib was now beating Conor at his own game, standing up.
Yeah.
Where did that come from?
That came from Conor being out of his depth. he was lost. He felt this intense power in round one, which he thought he'd prepared for extremely well by bringing in guys that he thought were adequate enough. I'm not a fan of Dylan Dennis, and I think that's clear. He really cannot, like, he's not a tenth of what the Khabib sort of pressure is. So I think Conor felt that pressure in round one. He got taken down very easily, and I think in round two he was so focused on that takedown, focused on that takedown that he didn't expect it. Obviously, he was looking down the whole time, and he just got clocked. But I think, and this comes back to Khabib's striking.
Yeah,
Khabib's striking is
it's a bit wild.
Is adequate.
Yeah.
So it's good enough to supplement his wrestling.
Yeah.
Now, is he going to ever be a boxing world champion? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But he's figured out how to balance his wrestling skills with a decent level of striking, so that he can confuse somebody, throw different things at them so that they confuse, and then obviously ultimately shooting for that takedown. But it begs the question: if this guy spent any time with a Jason Perillo or a Freddie Roach, what
kind of animal do we have?
You know what I mean? Like, it's insane. But yeah, no, that just came. I feel that just came from Conor just being completely overwhelmed by the pressure that Khabib brought. Again, that look in Khabib's eye. Let's not forget the psychological elements in this as well.
Yeah.
Like, Conor's looking over at a guy that is just not stopping. Like, he's just staring him dead in the eye, and it's scary.
Yeah.
And then obviously Conor just focusing on the takedown too much and getting knocked down by Khabib Nurmagomedov. I couldn't believe it.
And after that, the ground and pound that happened in round two, that's where I feel the most damage actually took place, because there was a point in time where Khabib was just smashing down on Conor. He was talking to him the whole time. Let's talk now. He was hitting him. And the only time Khabib would stop punching is when he got tired, because he was connecting with most of these shots.
Yeah, big shots.
And round two was like a big statement. I think that was the round where Conor felt, all right, I'm out of my depths here. Yeah. And we saw in round three, he came out, he tried to touch gloves. Khabib was not responding.
No way.
But you made an interesting point during that. And that is something that Khabib tends to do quite a bit when his corner gives him instructions.
I know what you're going to say.
Go ahead.
I think what you're going to say is essentially he forgets about his corner's advice sometimes, and he acts on what's happening in the fight too much. So he got some success with his striking in round two. He dropped Conor McGregor, a flash knockdown, and then he got confidence and thought he could strike with Conor McGregor.
Which is a big trap to fall into.
Big trap, big mistake. Because no matter what we say about Conor McGregor now and what he's going through psychologically and everything that's happened, he is still one of the best, or probably the best striker in the UFC at this present stage.
Right.
Striking with him as Khabib Nurmagomedov is a big mistake, especially with the adequate striking compared to the elite striking. If that had gone on a little bit longer, and Conor was releasing some of those left hands,
but hey,
he missed by a hairline.
But a couple of these lefts actually connected with Khabib, and he also ate them like it was Tiramisu Tuesdays and kept coming, you know. So
also true, but yeah, no, and I was screaming at the screen at that time when I was like, you know what, this guy needs to shoot for that takedown again, because it needs to be more of the same. You can't stand with Conor McGregor at all. And
that's what we said about AKA fighters, especially when they're the grapplers and they're fighting the stand-up. We mentioned that last time, and what I said is, as long as they stick to their game plan, they usually have a positive result against, stand-up fighters.
Yeah.
So round 3 ended, and then we came to obviously round 4, which had all the action.
Who did you score round 3 for?
So round 3 was interesting. Initially, I think because I was so pro Khabib, when I watched it the first time, I was like, no, Khabib has never lost a round.
Yeah.
It's Khabib's round. It was close. But what I realized, that there wasn't really takedowns in that. Conor shot right back up.
Yeah.
It was a lot of the clinch against the cage. Khabib took control of it. But if we look at the striking, Conor was landing some shots.
Yeah.
He found his range.
He did.
And it would have been dangerous if Khabib continued with the same kind of strategy going to round 4. I think it would have ended in
Khabib getting knocked knocked down. I do agree. I think round 3 was his first round loss in the UFC. I think that was Conor McGregor's round. But it led to nothing ultimately, because Conor didn't take any confidence from that. I think he just realized that, you know what, I'm out of my depth. Yes, I've won this round, but I just need to get back to my corner, listen to my coaches, my cornermen, see what happens. But round 4 was more of the same for for Khabib.
Now, before we talk about round 4 and bring it home, there's one thing I want to touch on as well. Conor was breaking a lot of rules in there, and Herb Dean did not pick them up. So we had the hooking of the gloves to prevent Khabib from completing his takedowns. That was in rounds 1 and 2, and Khabib was yelling, and he was
telling Herb Dean, he was
telling
like, hey,
Herb Dean, this is not right. There was an illegal knee.
That was the worst one for me. That was the worst one for me. That was a shot signs for desperation. 1 point
deduction immediately. I mean, that's a no-brainer. I mean, it's
100%.
Conor is a veteran in MMA. He should not be making that mistake.
But these were veteran moves.
Yeah.
Holding the gloves, that's a veteran move. He knows what he's doing. Hooking the cage with his toes.
Yeah.
Veteran move. He knows what he's doing. But that knee was below the belt. It wasn't called for. It's clear foul. But hey,
it's part of the game. Sometimes.
It is, but at the same time, it showed just pure desperation and just a lack of complete sort of confidence, which is something that we've never associated with Conor McGregor. That's why this is such a crazy fight.
Round 4, obviously, Khabib got the takedown very quickly. He completely kind of dominated Conor on the ground again.
Yeah.
And then Conor, in his desperation, there was a couple of explosive moves that I feel Conor spent a lot of energy trying to get through, to get Khabib off him, and they didn't work. He ended up giving up his back once Khabib got that hook in. I thought it was more of a kind of a choke. It turned out to be a neck crank. So it was over the chin.
It was over the chin, yeah.
And had Conor not tapped out, it would have broken his jaw, I feel, because Khabib was cranking that thing.
It was brutal. But Conor's not. He's tapped before, and this was like what just man, I don't know. It's just what gets me is how Khabib kind of just knew. Like he predicted this. He's like, I will tap you again. You've tapped 4 times before. I'll make you tap again. And part of me feels like he deliberately did a neck crank as opposed to a choke, so Conor could tap, because you can't if someone cranks your neck, you're not gonna like fall asleep. You're not gonna get put to sleep by it. You're just gonna get a really bad jaw, a really bad sort of neck pain. You have to tap eventually.
You have to tap,
But a choke, he could have just gone out and gone to sleep, so he wouldn't have got that satisfaction. But part of me thinks that was intentional, but at the same time, like, I feel like at the end of round 3, Conor was done. His demeanor in his corner, he wasn't listening to Kavanagh or Owen Roddy. He wasn't listening to any of those guys. It was weird. It was weird to see Conor in that position.
And once McGregor tapped out, Herb Dean had to pretty much pry him off, because, if you see the disconnect, it was a bit kind of sudden.
Yeah.
So Herb Dean pried him off, and that's the moment when we all realized that Khabib was a little bit disappointed that he finished the fight that early, because it's another round missed where he can smash this guy's face. And the frustration spilled over to what ended up to be kind of ruined the night a little bit. Khabib straight away went to Conor's corner, especially Dylan, and he just jumped over the fence, and that whole brawl started. Now, one thing that I want to say about that is I felt that the UFC commentary, whether you're looking at Fox, whether you're looking at the pay-per-view, Joe Rogan, it was quite unfair, because people attacked Khabib right away for what he had done, and I'm not defending what he did. Conor kind of caused the way that I would split the blame. Actually, how would you split the blame over this before I give my opinion?
Look, to me, I feel there was nothing I wanted to see more after that performance than to see Khabib get his moment with having Dana White strap the belt around him, have his moment with Joe Rogan,
with the hat,
his papaja on Joe Rogan's head, put that in Conor McGregor's face, because at the weigh-ins he said, don't let that smelly so and so put that on your head. I thought that was the most disgusting comment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Out of the entire episode.
It brought the racism home,
Yeah, I really I cringed at that. I was like, this is completely wrong. I wanted that, and then he's got the microphone. Now he can say whatever he wants.
Yeah.
But Mohamed, we're dealing with cage fighters. Now, we're not dealing with philosophers or intellects, and I'm not saying they're not intelligent. They are intelligent, but they're instinctually programmed to fight.
Yes.
That's what they are. There's a small percentage of fighters which are more cerebral in the way that they handle their demeanor off the octagon, outside of the octagon.
Yeah.
But you'd be hard pressed to find a fighter that isn't instinctually, his first instinct is to fight or to throw hands. Now, someone as pious and pure as Khabib is a human being at the end of the day. Now, once his mission was complete, he smashed the guy. he got his belt. He won the fight. Now, human Khabib comes back into play. Now he's in his own head. Now all of those things are coming back.
Yeah.
What he did was not correct. And what he must understand is that as a foreign person, he will be held to a different standard. That's just the truth of the matter, I believe. And he should have conducted himself better. And I think he knows that. And I can't justify his actions. Yeah. I really wish he didn't do it. But at the same time, I can understand. And
that's the point. And the way that I'm distributing the blame here is three-way: 33%, 33%, 33%. Because we can't exonerate Khabib for doing what he did. He has to take some kind of responsibility for it. Now, 100%. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, deep down inside, was I happy to see him just go out and just jump in Conor's corner? Like, you know, yes, I was. But for the love of the sport as well, it wasn't what we wanted to see. So I'll give 33% of the blame to Khabib.
Yeah.
I'm giving 33% of the blame, or 33.3, to Dana White, because as the promoter of this organization, as the head of this organization, Dana White, and we've talked about the mistakes that he's been making in promoting fights and promoting fighters, not champions, etc. He, in this particular instance, allowed Conor McGregor to cross the line so many times. In fact, I feel that he was an enabler for Conor McGregor to keep going with the whiskey thing. They all knew Khabib was Muslim. They all knew that Khabib, you know, and it was during that whiskey incident where Conor was trying to shove it in Khabib's face and Khabib was telling him, I don't drink. Told him, what kind of person doesn't drink, you backwards, you know what? So that's where even the racism came. And Dana didn't do anything. In fact, he was smiling, he was laughing, he was encouraging that kind of behavior. So as an organizer, I feel, especially when you're dealing with fighters from different cultures, yes, you have freedom of speech and all of that kind of stuff, and it's the fight game and the trash talk.
Yeah.
But there needs to be some kind of
policing.
Yeah. You can't let the fighters police themselves. We see this in basketball when a brawl breaks out. If anyone from the bench, as much as a foot, steps into the court, if you're not already on the court, that's an immediate heavy fine and a suspension.
Yeah.
We see it in football, because these things, you know, once this happens, it could spread like wildfire, you know?
100%. Look, I agree with what you're saying. I would... Firstly, I'd like to hear your other 33%.
It's Conor McGregor, obviously. So I mean, we have to say it. So it's Conor McGregor for obvious reasons. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I find it like I don't know where I stand with Dana White. I genuinely feel like he has the hardest job. I genuinely feel like he takes a lot of rap from a lot of different people, but I think that when he hangs his gloves up, he'll be remembered as the greatest promoter of all time across combat sports. I believe that people will look back at him and say, this man was a legend, and he is a legend. And I know and the reason I say he has the hardest job is because at the end of the day, Dana White is a businessman. He's part owner of the UFC, right?
Yeah.
Not anymore, I don't think. He sold his shares.
I think he might still have 7% or something like that. I don't know.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But he's heavily invested, obviously, in the UFC. Financially, I don't know, but emotionally, 100%. And he owns he runs the company. So his decisions are business orientated. Now, he needs to make money. He has new owners who have invested $4.2 billion into the company. He has that remit to make sure that the revenue is coming in. So he has to protect his golden boy, his assets, which is Conor McGregor. At the same time, like, Conor comes with a certain level of baggage, 100%.
Yeah.
So what is he supposed to do? Now, I understand what you're saying about there needs to be policing, but when you have that, it's easiest for him. His easiest move is to say, hey, these are fighters. This is a fight game. Yeah. This is the hurt business. Everyone's free to say what they want. I'm not going to police what Khabib says. I'm not going to police what Conor McGregor says. You might call it the easy way out, but what is he to do in that situation?
He actually got that question in the post-fight press conference.
Yeah, he did, and that was his answer, right?
And that was the reason. Part of the reason why I'm giving him part of the blame. The way that he dismissed it.
Yeah,
like it wasn't. He had no responsibility whatsoever. The problem that I have with Dana White in this whole thing is the hypocrisy in some of his actions.
Yeah.
Because we're talking about he hid behind the Nevada State Athletic Commission throughout the whole press conference. Where was the Nevada State Athletic Commission when Conor filled up a private jet with 20 goons and flew over?
Conor got punished though. He had a court date.
Where was the UFC's discipline?
Yeah.
This was he committed a crime.
Where I draw the line is if they even think about suspending Khabib, sorry, that will be for me.
But they're holding his purse.
Ridiculous. But that's the commission, right? Like, I mean, I'm talking about the UFC. The commission has no say in whether his belt gets stripped or whether he gets suspended. I think suspension is on them, but whether his belt gets stripped, that would be crossing the line because then and this is coming back to what Khabib said in his post-fight press conference, right? He was like, you know what? Everyone talks about what I did. You know, I went into the crowd, I did this and I did that. Conor smashed a bus window with a dolly.
Almost blinded.
You know, he emotionally sort of injured many people inside that bus, and he caused absolute havoc in that scene. But also, something interesting what they were saying is that no one really, he lost a lot of like millions and millions of dollars in that as well. Obviously, he had his fines, he had his court dates, etc., etc.
Right.
So he was sufficiently punished by the athletic commission.
Conor, that is,
But there was no ramifications in the UFC for him.
Yeah.
Now, if Khabib gets any UFC related ramifications as a direct consequence of what he did, no go. Absolutely. Like, everyone has the right to be like, this is wrong. And I personally don't believe Dana will do it.
You don't think so?
I don't think so. If he does, I'll lose a lot of faith in him. Yeah. But at the same time, he needs to figure out, he's in the dilemma where does his golden boy go now? Yeah. You know? Like,
where does Conor go from here? I mean,
what are your thoughts? What do you think?
Before we move on to that, I just want to say one more thing about there's one part that I think the part that ticked me off, well, two things that ticked me off the most. The first one was the fact that the Nevada State Athletic Commission released Conor McGregor's check almost an hour and a half after the incident. Like by the press conference, actually, not even an hour. It was by the press conference it was released. Khabib's purse is still being held.
Yep.
And video came out afterwards that showed that Conor threw the first punch. He sucker punched one of Khabib's guys. I don't know.
Brother.
It was his brother. And that's when things happened. So when Dana in the press conference was talking about how Conor was generous enough not to press any charges and all that kind of stuff.
Making him like the victim.
Like the victim. I couldn't stand that. This was like infuriated me. The second part that really got me really angry was the fact that Dana did not put the belt around Khabib's waist in the octagon. Now, I understand the reasons that he gave. He felt that the crowd were going to throw things into they would have done that anyway.
Yeah.
Give the man, all right, no interview, no Joe Rogan, none of that, but give him his belt. Even if you don't even announce it, just let him walk out of there with his belt. That was another thing. Yes, Khabib has, two wrongs don't make a right.
True.
But what Khabib did does not compare to what Conor has done throughout this promotion. From the bus incident onwards, it's just, I don't know. I mean,
I know what you're saying, 100%. We can all have our speculation, and obviously hindsight is a wonderful thing, right? Yeah. Can you imagine being in that scene and being Dana White? Like, MMA, being the guy that has played an active role, and the reason why I call him one of the greatest promoters of all time, an active role in cleaning up the sport, making it the largest growing sport in the US and probably even the world.
Bringing USADA in.
Cleaning it up completely, like to a point where now we have mainstream audiences, my mother telling me about the fight, calling me saying, hey, this, you know, which is beautiful. Like, and you know, he's helped to create this well-oiled machine. When he sees things like this, it brings those negative vibes. You know, like MMA has been sort of labeled as, you know, human cockfighting at times.
Yeah.
Like, these are things that maybe he has flashbacks on when he sees these things. It's like, man, I've worked so hard to try and clean this thing up,
right?
To try and make it so like celebrities come here and we have mainstream audiences, we have huge pay-per-views. But these things kind of set the sport back a lot.
Right.
And I think maybe he was infuriated at that time. He was completely probably not in his mind, because he's also a human at the end of the day. I can't 100% judge Dana on his actions at that time.
Yeah.
Should he have put the belt on his waist? 100% he should have. Bruce Buffer should have announced it and still, he should have got the belt. He should have got his interview, but at the same time, like given the pandemonium that ensued, I don't. The way that it was handled, I can understand it, and I don't hold too much against the UFC for that.
And just to prove that Khabib was not acting like a hooligan at that point, it wasn't the Conor, bus incident for him.
Yeah.
Is the fact that in the press conference, he actually went and said that he's scared of facing his dad when he gets home. My dad is going to smash me.
Yeah.
It was so it kind of really shows where this came from. It was the pent-up anger that came out. But going back to Conor McGregor.
But wait, on that point, culture.
Yeah.
Think about it.
A 30-year-old man who's the world champion of the UFC is scared of his dad,
He's lightweight champion of the world. He just beat the biggest combat sports artist in martial artist, in the entire world. The biggest, most famous. And he's worried about going home and facing his father and what his father's going to say to him.
For acting in a way
that was justified, but his dad would have told him, hey, you should have shown more respect.
Right.
That is a man that cannot be beaten. I'm sorry. No Conor McGregor, nothing is gonna get in the way of this man and his mission.
I agree.
It's a beautiful symbol, in my opinion. And I think you have to understand the cultural nuances of where Khabib comes from to really appreciate who this man is. And other people call him backwards, other people call him sort of label him in these ways, but it's through ignorance.
It is.
It's something that if you truly understand, and I think we can understand where this man comes from, to really appreciate who this man is and how amazing this feat, what he's done in the UFC has been. Like, it's incredible.
Now, we're running a little bit out of time, and I wish we had time to talk about the rest of the card, but let's wrap up with this. Where does Conor McGregor go from here?
He put out a couple of tweets today.
He wants a rematch. But he's clutching at straws. I think public perception of Conor McGregor is highly damaged. His stock is at an all-time low. We discussed that. I personally believe he's got to go back and he needs to try as hard as he can to get this rematch. Anything else pales. But I don't believe that Khabib will give it to him because he won in such convincing fashion.
It wasn't even competitive in the slightest. But hey, he's Conor McGregor. He gets what he wants. But I think if he doesn't come back and do the Nate Diaz thing, sort of get this win back in his column, I don't see where else he can go. This will always overshadow him because he got destroyed in the fashion that he did.
Because I'm trying to think of what fight could Conor McGregor win before he gets the Khabib rematch. I think he should take a fight because he looked like he was out of his depth. And I'm thinking Tony Ferguson. I actually would think Tony Ferguson has a good chance in beating Conor McGregor.
I agree. I'm a big fan, and I think
Khabib,
we discussed that last time.
It will be more of the same. It will be suicide. So the best move for Conor, I feel, is to try and get a GSP fight because GSP out of the octagon for a while as well. He's looking for that big fight. He's not taking a lot of the fights that are offered to him. GSP would be a good build-up. There'll be that trash talk. It's Westerner versus Westerner. Who won't have that,
At the same time, if you talk about stock, GSP, that's his favorite word.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've heard of him in interviews.
Yeah.
He checks fighter stock. Like, he looking at Conor, his stock is low at the minute. I don't think GSP will take that fight right now. Because it will just be like, why should I take Conor McGregor? He just lost to Khabib. He will take the Khabib fight. Yeah. That is a huge fight. GSP, Khabib, that is, wow.
That's goosebumps like a Hall of Famer against a future Hall of Famer.
Exactly. But I don't, Khabib, I don't know where Conor goes from here. I don't know if he doesn't get the rematch, everyone else is going to laugh at him. And they have their whole entire press conferences, their whole media tour is already written for them. Like, it's just here,
It's what Mayweather would have been had he lost any of his fights.
Exactly.
Everybody was waiting for that, for him to become a laughing stock. Conor McGregor is in that position right now.
100%. And that's why, the stuff that he's putting out on social media right now is cringeworthy.
Yeah.
And it's like almost, it's pitiful almost. And people are, the comments and the reactions to it is that, you know, he said, what did he say? He said, you know, we lost the match. We won the battle. The war will go on, or whatever. People are commenting like, "What did you win?
What did you win?
What? In what circumstance or scenario do you think that you've actually gained anything from this?
Yeah.
You've made yourself look an absolute idiot." But yeah, I don't know. What do you think, man?
I totally agree with you. I think you put it perfectly. I think Conor McGregor's in trouble. I think any fight that he takes other than Khabib right now, any fight that he gets, he will still be mocked. This is a black cloud that will always hang over him.
100%.
Absolutely. Anyways, with that, before we wrap up, just a quick question. Other than that fight, what was your favorite fight of the card?
Ooh. Oh man, I loved the Tony Ferguson Anthony Pettis fight. I really enjoyed it until Pettis, because we wrote him off. We completely, both of us, we wrote him off.
Anthony Pettis completely.
We'd written him off completely. We never thought he'd be competitive. But that was a great fight. I still, for me, I told you last time as well, Ferguson is the number one contender for this division. He's a very, very talented dude. That was. I really enjoyed Derek Lewis's performance.
Absolutely, it was the heavyweight division. Anybody could come back at any time. He was getting beat up, dominated. He was wobbly for most of that fight.
Oh man!
And
what a character!
Yeah, took his shorts off at the end of the fight.
Oh man! What about you? What was your favorite fight?
For me, it was the Derek Lewis fight.
Yeah,
it's just because it was just so unexpected. The guy Volkov should have circled for another 20 seconds, and he would have won that fight convincingly. And it was just a devastating knockout. I'm a sucker for heavyweight 100%. Boxing, heavyweight UFC. I mean, it's incredible.
I thought Volkov would have had his number though, because he's been on a tear. He just knocked out Verdum. He's knocked out. I think before that it was. I can't remember who it was before that, but he's been on an absolute tear. I thought he would beat Derek Lewis, but the Black Beast continues to roll on.
And he might get some good fights or close to title contention now.
Potentially.
Anyways, thanks a lot. It was a fantastic recap. We'll have you back for sure in upcoming cards. Once again, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube and Facebook pages. Listen to us on iTunes, Stitcher, and SoundCloud. And until next time, take care.